Today's video, I'm going to cover BlackBerry stock. It's going to be a short video because I really want to cover the technicals approaching some important levels. But at the same time, I'm going to cover a little bit of the news, most likely you guys are aware about it. And then in terms of the conference coming up, we'll be live streaming that on my channel. So if you want to be notified when I do, consider following and subscribing so you'll be notified when I do. But in terms of the news, I'm sure you guys are aware, Wolfe and BlackBerry announced closing of acquisition of Cylance. This is great news because yes, they were cash flow positive even with Cylance at the last quarter that was reported. But at the same time, we know to grow Cylance to what we would hope it to be would take more time and investments. While I have other parts of the business already making a good amount of returns, it almost makes more sense to invest to those aspects. At least that's what from the management team has been telling us and from what we're seeing as well at the same time, right? So this is great. Now they're cash flow positive and they have more cash on hand versus debt overall. So that's great. And that leads me to the next thing, which, by the way, before I get to that, actually, quick thing, I'm not a professional, so please do your own due diligence and research before buying and selling. And I do own shares in the company, so be mindful of that while you're watching this video as well. And the reason why I wanted to state this before the next point was there's a chance they've mentioned a decent amount of times that share buyback might be a possible avenue that they might go through with the extra cash on hand, or obviously mergers and acquisitions or more investments into research and development. But the reason why I'm stating this is we've seen the share price rise quite significantly recently. So that's pretty awesome, right? Obviously, right? Massive rise, like pretty much straight line for the most part. And it's all driven by what the new management team has been doing. Great job overall, all fronts. But given how fast they're moving, personally, the Cylance deal, I did not expect this to happen and at least close too. Until probably second part of this year. So at least June, July time frame, a little bit past it, somewhere around there, right? Second part of technically July, right? But a little bit past that, and then the Cylance deal would have been completed and sold, right? But they ended up selling and closing it off all within a matter of months of everybody who's kind of trying to figure out what's happening. And that's relatively fast and a pretty decent deal, right? They get to keep the patents, they get to keep the losses, tax losses as well, which is very beneficial because when BlackBerry makes profits, they could write against those losses. So keeping more of their actual cash on hand versus paying taxes, right? Because those are write-offs for the company, right? So they get to keep that plus the patents, plus they get to have, I believe it was 5.5 million shares of Wolfe. Great company, it looks like, because it's worth in the billions, supposedly, and planning to IPO in the next year or two, potentially IPOing in the next year or two. So that is great. Technically, the shares could be worth way more than the calculated amount that we've discussed before, right? So this is great, actually, overall. And then given how fast they're moving, again, back to my original point, sorry for the tangent a little bit, is the fact that if they end up announcing share buyback at any point, then expect the share price to rise, right? Now, is it a guarantee? Not necessarily. Not even close to a guarantee because they've mentioned it a few times, but they said as a possibility, correct, right? Or like not correct, but that's basically it. And again, be mindful that I own shares in the company. So I don't want you guys to get excited and just buy shares based off of what I'm saying, right? Do your own due diligence and research before buying and selling. But the share price is currently at $5.25 US. And I'm going to get into more of the technicals soon. I just want to go over one other thing before I get to the full technicals. But share price has been rising. And yes, we have levels coming up. But with that kind of announcement, either they buy back the shares or retire the shares. Now, retiring the shares, I would say, would be more beneficial, for example, the directors and all that stuff and like the CEO and CFO of the company, because then they would own more majority of the shares of the company kind of thing. But for regular shareholders, I don't expect real benefits. So either or works out, but either way, share buybacks or retirement of shares would be eliminating more shares to be technically, for example, shorted or something like that. And then supply and demand kind of plays in, share price would rise regardless. And then also potentially there could be excitement too, which would also rise up the share price as well. So stuff like that. So just be aware that the reason why I'm stating this is because as fast as the company is moving, or not, as fast as the management team is moving, that could happen at any moment. That's what I'm basically stating. Because the Cylance thing happened so fast that almost, yeah, you could say you were kind of seeing it coming, but I don't think anybody was seeing it coming this fast, personally. I don't know. At least that was for me. That's just my opinion, right? So I just want you guys to be aware of that because obviously some of you guys play options as well. That could be a driving factor as well for that. Now, in terms of protecting, because some of you guys own shares and then do options as well. That's the thing, protecting your shares, basically. That's what I'm trying to state. Because option plays, it's obviously beneficial overall, but in terms of owning shares and doing option plays, that's a different story. Now, in terms of the conference coming up, there's BlackBerry to participate in an upcoming investor event. Again, I will be live streaming this on my channel. So if you want to be notified when I do, consider following and subscribing. Thanks again for the support. I do appreciate it. So Wolfe Research Auto Tech and Semiconductor Conference is on Wednesday, February 12th, 2025 at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. Tim Foote, actually, it looks like it might have adjusted. So on mine, I think I have it at 2 p.m. I'll adjust it at 12 p.m. Sorry about that in terms of time frame. Eastern Time. So Tim Foote will be there, BlackBerry CFO, Financial Officer, and John Wall, Chief Operating Officer of QNX, Head of Product Engineering and Services, will join Wolfe Research for fireside chat. So again, we'll be live streaming on my channel. And then in terms of the technical, so exciting stuff overall. Again, closed at $5.25 US. Pretty impressive stuff. Like honestly, it's just climbing up. Great volume as well. We've been seeing increased volume. And if you look at the 1 year chart, this is an MACD line indicating if it's a bearish or bullish movement. Still strong bullish movement for the time being. We do see a slight decrease in terms of buying volume, but still nonetheless buying volume regardless. This is for the 1 year chart. The main thing I want to show is the 5 year chart and the all chart. So 5 year chart, bullish movement, pretty much solidified more to stronger upside. You can see with the solid greens right there versus light greens. Plus the volume has increased in terms of the 5 year data, and it's pretty strong and rising, right? So we might potentially, you could argue a little bit with the 1 year chart, maybe future slowdown with the decreased volume a little bit. But because I think earnings is coming somewhat close, which I will have a video on what you could expect in terms of forward outlook, estimates, all stuff, hopefully in the next few weeks. But because earnings is coming up, plus we have the conference, plus there could be news on all that stuff, I think the short-lived downside might not be too much, especially since I was thinking maybe on the Friday it would close under $5 but held strong. I don't think that 1 year slowdown will necessarily happen. Again, be mindful, I do own shares in the company though, so I personally could be too excited. So definitely do your own research and due diligence before buying and selling, right? Now, in terms of the 5 year chart, this is the most important thing that I wanted to cover. We are approaching the 200-day moving average for the 5 year chart. The reason why that's important, the last time we were above that 200-day moving average in the 5 year chart was pretty much in January of 2022. So ever since January 2022, we were underneath it. We see that we did retest it at one point, but you could argue, let me just move this information here. You could argue we had a downward trend resistance line right about here, and that was what actually kept us down. Not like you could see these clean touch points right about here. Here was January 2021. Here's a green, you might not be able to see it, but it's a green tick. June 2021, November 2021, and then March of 2022. But yeah, we tested the downward 200-day moving average, but potentially the downward trend resistance line. Either way, but if we cross it, that's great. And then you're obviously asking what level is that level. The 200-day moving average is at currently $5.45. So again, we're at $5.25. This moving average obviously moves day by day by the price actions, later on averaging them overall, but we're looking at potentially breaking $5.45. So if that breaks it, it's pretty beneficial because that could trigger some signals for some institutions potentially to buy or come in or something like that. Potentially, right? Some people have targets like these in terms of notifications. So there's that. And then we're also coming up to the all chart. If you look at the all chart, also MACD line is bullish and a strong bullish case, by the way, too. Now, for the time being, in terms of volume has increased. We're just waiting for this next data point to enter to see if it's continuously increasing. But we're not aware right now, but still for the time being strong and strong candles to the upside. But we have the 50-day moving average and 100-day moving average for the all chart. And that is at $5.79 for the 50-day and then $6.93 for the 100-day. Now, it might take some time, obviously, to get to the 100-day, but the 50-day of the all chart and the 5 year chart with the 200-day getting so close, I think we'll be within that range, or if not breaking them fully, relatively soon, in my opinion. But that's basically, I just wanted to cover that because the most important things was the data points in terms of, or not data points, but the technicals on the charts, and the fact that be aware that there might be potentially, because they said it was a possibility, a share buyback. And if that is the case, expect the share price to rise. Again, that's just my opinion, and I do own shares in the company, so be mindful of that. But I just wanted to mention because personally with the silence thing, I thought it was relatively quick. So I don't want you guys to not expect that potential that could happen in a way, if that makes sense. But that's basically it for today's video. Thanks again for watching. I do appreciate it. Again, the conference is coming up, so be aware of that in terms of the live stream. Thanks again for the support. Appreciate it. Take care. God bless and peace.